Hello, friends. I don't think it's necessary to reiterate that the automobile is one of those inventions that has significantly impacted humanity and our world as a whole. With the advent of cars, our planet seemed much smaller than we once imagined, and travel time was reduced drastically. Each of us gained the opportunity to visit more places and personally experience the vibrant character of different countries and cities with our own eyes. Thanks to automobiles, our lives have become faster, more comfortable, and dynamic. Of course, the automotive world isn't limited to just Ford or Mercedes, and almost every self-respecting country has numerous car brands, many of which are already familiar to us. Today, friends, we want to share the story of one Japanese car company that stands out from the rest due to its exceptional quality, reliability, and, importantly, affordability. Of course, friends, that's Honda. But how did those legendary Japanese cars come to be? And where did it all begin? That's what I'm going to talk about today. The founders of the company are considered to be Soichiro Honda. The future engineer was born in 1906 into a blacksmith's family in a small Japanese town. From a young age, the boy actively helped his father with blacksmithing and also participated in developing the small family business of bicycle repairs. The family lived modestly, but there was always enough food. Since little Soichiro was always around his father, it was only natural that he soon became fascinated with various mechanisms, constantly taking things apart. In school, our hero was diligent, and his favorite subjects were arithmetic and natural science. The boy's life was not particularly different from that of millions of other teenagers, but that didn't last long. In 1922, he left school and his hometown, packed his things, and moved to Tokyo. You might be surprised, but the reason for this move was his strong interest in the mechanical aspects of cars. This interest was sparked and the first car arrived in their small town, the famous and legendary Ford T. And it's worth mentioning that it was a real revelation for the boy. I remember when that marvel stopped, and oil leaked out of it, like a little dog, dropped to the ground and inhaled its magical smell. I smeared my hands and face with it. It was then that I vowed that one day I would build a car myself. This is how the future engineer described his first encounter with an automobile. In Tokyo, along with other students from various towns and villages, Soichiro became a mechanic apprentice. It took him about 6 years to fully learn the profession and gain as much experience as possible. During this time, he worked and interned only for food, but he wasn't discouraged, as he had a dream of becoming an engineer. Only after such a long period, at the age of 22, did the young man decide to return home. It's worth noting that he was returning not empty-handed, but with a great desire to create something new. By the time of his return home, Soichiro wasn't idle. He soon opened his own garage in his hometown. Everything was very simple. Having learned the trade, he decided not only to help everyone with the repair of various vehicles, which were just starting to gain popularity at that time, but also to train other young people who were as interested as he was. You might wonder why he did this, and the answer is quite simple. Children from poor families didn't have the opportunity to learn, and to give them that opportunity, our hero decided to hire them. To jump ahead, I'll say that many of those hungry apprentices later became top managers in the largest corporation, but more on that later. By the way, things almost immediately began to take off, and news of the excellent mechanic spread to several neighboring villages. The first important milestone in our young man's career came when he was offered to replace the wooden spokes in bicycle wheels with metal ones. Yes, friends, this was back in the time when spokes on bicycles and other small vehicles were still made of wood. It's worth mentioning that this idea not only brought him recognition but also a decent list of orders. He patented this idea. One of the first things, I think, will now make it clear who came up with those metal spokes. But the young man didn't stop there. He was well aware that this was just the beginning, and as it would later turn out, he was right. He wanted to change the world for the better, so he was constantly coming up with new ideas and improving existing ones. At one point, the number of his apprentices exceeded 20, and the space in the old garage became catastrophically insufficient. At the same time, there were enough orders not only to earn a living but also to pay salaries to his apprentices. So, just a couple of years later, Soichiro Honda founded his first company for manufacturing piston rings called Takai Seiki. The first major order came from Toyota just 6 months later. The order was so large that the man had to quickly build his first factory to meet the deadline and ensure the required quality. Interestingly, he managed to do this thanks to his own savings and loans, as well as a partial advance payment from Toyota. Essentially, Toyota ended up giving money to its future competitor. Production was going well, and the number of jobs was constantly growing. Other industrial giants in Japan also frequently turned to Honda's services, and the small company was steadily gaining momentum. But, unfortunately, like many other heroes in our videos, this period turned out to be less fortunate. The cause was World War II. During the war, the company's factory suffered heavy bombing and was completely destroyed. The damage was further exacerbated by the 1945 earthquake, and it so happened that within a short period, the successful businessman, who had built his business throughout his conscious life, found himself, as they say, at the end of his rope. Realizing that it would take too much time and money to restore his business, Soichiro decided to sell all the remnants of his company for a modest sum, 450,000 yen, about $22,000 at the time. Considering this was during the American occupation of Japan, the yen soon depreciated tenfold, and in the end, it turned out that he sold the factory almost for nothing. Nevertheless, he invested this modest amount into a new venture, which he named Honda Technical Research Institute in 1946. It was there that Soichiro, just for fun, decided to attach a small engine to his bicycle. The result of this experiment greatly piqued his interest. The resulting moped became his main mode of transportation, used not only for commuting to work but also for various errands. Soon after, he decided to present this invention to his friends. It's worth noting that at that time, automobile manufacturing in Japan was just beginning, and this type of transportation proved to be quite successful and popular. His friends, in turn, wanted to get a similar motorized bicycle for themselves, becoming Honda's first customers. After some time, Soichiro seriously considered mass-producing such mopeds. Thus, what started as a playful experiment turned into reality. To attract investors, Soichiro reached out to over 5,000 traders, offering them a chance to revive Japan's transportation system. However, only a few dozen responded, but that was enough. Thanks to their generous investments, Soichiro was able to purchase a large batch of Tohatsu motors from radio generators left over from the war. These motors were used in the first mopeds. But eventually, the stock of motors ran out, and Soichiro had to create his own engine from scratch. This took nearly a year, and by 1948, Honda released its first motorcycle, named the Dream. The company also began producing all the parts needed for mopeds and motorcycles. The number of orders in post-war Japan overwhelmed Soichiro. Struggling to keep up with the flood of orders while simultaneously inventing new products, he invited another person to join the company in the early 1950s, who soon became his business partner. This person was Takeo Fujisawa. Fujisawa took over all corporate management and sales. It's worth noting that Soichiro Honda trusted Fujisawa, even though he admitted that the Tokyo-based manager was much better at running the business than he was. Soichiro focused more on development and technical aspects, while Fujisawa handled negotiations and managed the staff. Moreover, Fujisawa invested his own money into the company's development during tough times, never asking for anything in return. This combination of engineer and manager proved successful. By 1951, the company had released an updated version of its motorcycle and opened a new factory in Tokyo. Thanks to successful sales, just 2 years later, Honda Motor Company established its headquarters in Tokyo. In 1954, the entrepreneur faced his first serious challenge. Despite his company holding a substantial 15% of Japan's vehicle market, production was too slow compared to the growing demand. Each of the leaders had their own views on the company's future. Fujisawa believed that with increased sales would come increased profits, leading to more workers and factories. Meanwhile, Honda's plans were much grander. He dreamed not only of producing unparalleled racing motorcycles but also of expanding sales internationally. Honda was convinced that achieving this goal was possible through racing, as it served as excellent advertising. Honda motorcycles had already participated in races in 1953, when a team of riders traveled to Brazil. However, one of the riders fell ill a few days before the race and could not participate. As a result, another rider finished 13th out of 25 participants. In 1954, Soichiro Honda attended the TT races as a spectator, where he personally witnessed the strengths and weaknesses of other motorcycles and their engines. He also acquired his competitors' designs and returned to Japan, where he continued working on his own developments. By that time, the company was producing around 130 motorcycles a day, and by 1959, this number had increased tenfold, making Honda a global leader. As time went on, the company's growth required an expansion of its production structure. The entrepreneurs decided to open a new factory, and over 10 million yen was spent on acquiring equipment, which naturally had a negative impact on the company's financial position, nearly pushing it to bankruptcy. The situation was salvaged by Takeo Fujisawa, who sought government assistance. The government supported the company's development through changes in the country's road legislation. Between 1954 and 1959, motorcycles such as the Dream C70 and the Honda Super Cub were released. The latter had a significant impact on the company's future. This model was so successful and in demand abroad that the company began producing up to 50,000 new motorcycles a month. For that time, these were astonishing figures, and even now, it is considered an impressive achievement. The key features of these vehicles were their affordable price and simplicity. However, competitors were also actively working. Japan's recovering economy was daily giving rise to new companies ready to surprise consumers. It was this competition that contributed to Japan's quality and cutting-edge technology becoming among the best. By the early 1960s, Honda launched its first advertising campaign, and the brand's motorcycles began to be associated with biker culture. In some circles, they were even linked with crime and gangs. This was because Honda motorcycles were in high demand, and a large number of people, including mafia members, used them. The brand's motorcycles were valued for their reliability and speed, which allowed quick escapes from crime scenes and never failed at critical moments. Despite these prejudices, Honda motorcycles remained among the most convenient means of transportation. When an ordinary person faced the choice of which brand of motorcycle to buy, in 9 out of 10 cases, it was Honda. As for the founder himself, despite his great success, he still held on to his dream of winning races. In 1959, a pilot from the company secured 6th place in the TT races. Even this result did not satisfy Soichiro, and it was only in 1961 that his dream finally came true. The entrepreneur was able to prove not only to himself but to the whole world the superiority of his motorcycles, as a pilot from his company took the top 5 places. Having achieved such success in the motorcycle market, many in his position would likely have been satisfied and started spending money on a luxurious lifestyle. But Soichiro did not rest on his laurels. At the age of 56, he decided to try his luck again and launch his own automotive division. He had to start almost from scratch, as all his manufacturing facilities were geared exclusively towards producing two-wheeled vehicles. Car production was much more complex and costly. However, Honda was unstoppable. Setting a new goal of participating in Formula One, in 1962, he showcased the first sports two-door convertible, the Honda S360, at the Tokyo Motor Show. Since this was just a prototype, the model was not put on sale. Instead, the market received the S500. In the same year, Honda released the light truck T360, which quickly gained widespread popularity. The company first participated in automotive racing in 1965 and did not miss the mark. An American driver for Honda won the Mexican Grand Prix with the Honda RA272. The company continued to participate in races, almost always achieving victories. By 1967, Honda had become the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer and began to expand its product range. In the subsequent years, new models of passenger cars and pickups were introduced, but they faced limited demand both in Japan and in the United States. A breakthrough came with the introduction of the Honda Civic in 1973. The success of this economical model was significantly boosted by the 1973 oil crisis. Due to the crisis, most manufacturers had to reduce production volumes and raise car prices. However, Honda decided to take a risk by doubling its production capacity while significantly lowering car prices. This move proved to be wise. While other companies were losing money, Honda doubled its profits in its 25th year. Within 3 years, Honda Civic sales surpassed 1 million vehicles. At the same time, a more expensive model, the Accord, was introduced and also saw high demand, particularly in the US. In 1982, a dedicated factory was opened in Ohio to produce this model. That same year, motorcycle sales reached 3.5 million units. Starting in 1986, Honda began developing and producing robots, and that year also saw the establishment of the Acura division, which started producing luxury vehicles. This allowed Honda to become one of the largest car manufacturers by the end of the 1980s. In 1991, the supercar Honda NSX was introduced, featuring the first fully aluminum monocoque, a mid-mounted V6 engine, and a variable valve timing system. By 1992, Acura cars were the best-selling in the US, and Honda was in third place for the number of cars sold. However, by the early 1990s, the US car market had become saturated, leading to a decline in car sales starting in 1993. This prompted Honda to expand its geographical presence. In 1997, factories were opened in India, Vietnam, Turkey, Indonesia, and Brazil, and in 1992, a joint venture was established in China for motorcycle production. Soichiro Honda had stepped down as company president in 1973 but continued to serve as its leader until 1983, after which he retired from the post but remained an advisor until the end of his life. The same happened with Fujisawa. The new head of the company became Takao Fujisawa, followed by Toshihiro Nakajima in 1990, and then Ken Kunimatsu. After leaving the company, Soichiro Honda became deeply interested in UFOs and even dreamed of creating his own spacecraft. He once visited NASA with this intention but was unable to develop anything due to a lack of time. Soichiro Honda passed away in 1991 from kidney disease. After Soichiro Honda's death and Fujisawa's departure, the company found itself in a challenging situation. Other Japanese automakers had surpassed Honda in new product development, and the company was caught off guard by the truck and SUV boom of the early 1990s. This negatively impacted the company's overall profitability. In 1992 and 1993, Japanese media reported that Honda was at serious risk of unwanted and hostile takeover by Mitsubishi Motors, which was a larger automaker at the time due to its successful models, Pajero 2 and Diamond. Honda's CEO, Kawamoto, quickly responded to the changing corporate environment by developing market-oriented products, leading to the introduction of new recreational vehicles such as the first-generation Odyssey and the CR-V model, which quickly became legendary. The most shocking change occurred when Kawamoto ended Honda's involvement in Formula One campaigns after the 1992 season, citing high costs and a desire to create a more environmentally friendly company image. In 1997, Honda introduced its first electric vehicle, the EV+, which was a pioneer in its category. Since the early 2000s, Honda has continued to evolve in various directions while remaining true to its core principles, producing not only innovative but also high-quality automobile models. In 2004, Honda established a subsidiary in the US for aviation engines, and 2 years later, Honda Aircraft Company was founded. The period from 2005 to 2015 was marked by various events that influenced the company's development, from launching the first airbag for motorcycles to achieving global sales records for motorcycles and business jets. Honda has been the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer since 1959, reaching 400 million motorcycles produced by the end of 2019. The company is also the world's largest producer of internal combustion engines, manufacturing over 14 million units annually. In 2001, Honda became the second largest Japanese car manufacturer, and by 2015, it had secured the 8th position in the global automotive manufacturing rankings. Honda uses its own engines, transmissions, and technologies in car manufacturing, which explains the high rankings of Japanese vehicles in reliability, quality, and safety. Honda is known for its distinctiveness, environmental friendliness, and fuel efficiency. In addition to its core automotive and motorcycle businesses, Honda also manufactures garden equipment, outboard motors, personal watercraft, and generators. Since 1986, the company has been engaged in research in artificial intelligence and robotics, and in 2000, it launched its robot Asimo. The company's main manufacturing facilities are located in Japan, the US, India, and Brazil, with primary markets being the US and Southeast Asia. Currently, Honda operates over 30 factories in 15 countries around the world. The company's headquarters are located in Minato, Tokyo, Japan. In the Forbes Global 2000 list of the world's largest public companies in 2016, Honda ranked 74th, including 36th in revenue. Honda also holds 23rd place in the list of the most valuable brands and 239th place in the list of the best employers in the US. The company's primary owners are shareholders, with the Honda family owning only 6% of the shares. In 2018, the company celebrated its 70th anniversary and continues to strive for further achievements. More than 100 million Honda vehicles have been produced, and they continue to delight their owners to this day. Soichiro Honda is often compared to Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, but analysts agree on one point: Honda was the best after Ford in the automotive industry. During his lifetime, Honda established two non-profit organizations, the Honda Foundation and the International Association for Traffic Safety, which today work on improving road safety. Honda is remembered by millions as an ordinary and humble individual who became the head of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. He often wore a simple red shirt and attended board meetings in an ordinary jacket, similar to what many of us wear. Honda never chased brands or spent money on a luxurious lifestyle. He traveled only in vehicles of his own manufacture and never strayed from his brand. Honda believed that a person should not be judged by their appearance, which was particularly significant in Japan, where a white shirt and black suit were the mandatory attire for business and successful people. They would lower their eyes when Soichiro Honda stood among them in a cheap jacket and red shirt, realizing that their accomplishments paled in comparison to his. Once, a ceremony to award him an imperial honor almost fell through because Honda intended to attend in a simple work jacket rather than the formal tailcoat required by protocol. He never hid his disdain for theorists who had studied at prestigious universities but lacked practical engineering experience. To him, a university diploma without real-world experience meant nothing, which is why many of the top managers in his company were those early apprentices who had worked with nuts and bolts in his first garage. In Soichiro Honda's view, someone who had never dismantled an engine could not teach another to build one, regardless of how many degrees they had. Honda did not gain his knowledge from books, his universities were the workbench and the workplace. He held even less respect for the powerful Japanese Ministry of International Trade and Industry, which had continually obstructed him throughout his life, as creating an automotive conglomerate did not fit into the then-current industrial policy. It is no surprise that the relationship between the freethinker in rolled-up sleeves and the Japanese political and economic elite remained tense until the end of his life, and the Honda Corporation was always sidelined in support from the authorities. Despite all the difficulties, Soichiro Honda proved what he was truly capable of. This is the story of the legendary Honda cars and motorcycles, from a simple guy from a poor family to a world-renowned self-taught engineer and outstanding businessman of the 20th century. Do you like Honda cars? Have you had any experience with them? Be sure to let us know in the comments. That's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and see you next time. Bye.